great. I feel really positive because even across the last 3 years, I've got to see this shift that Cindy was talking about towards social emotional learning and acknowledging, you know, the need for more mental health staff and people with training in this area. So it's very exciting. So what do? Lots of stuff. We, you know, recently there's been a shift from Cindy and our bosses that the social workers and school psychologists are doing first grade and kindergarten lessons. Hi, welcome.
Totally wrong area.
So sorry. It's a little confusing here. It took us a while to. No, no, it's okay. Do you guys want to just quickly share your names and how old your kids are, just so we know?
Sure.
Are you right on the spot? Right.
Oh, sure. I'm Bonnie, and I have 2 boys, ages 6 and 6.
Okay, great. At which school?
At Winthrop.
Winthrop, great.
Sorry, I'm leaving you over there, Bonnie. You want to come into the light?
Okay.
Come into the light. I am Lindsay, and I have 3 kids. I have a son who is a kindergartner at Hoover, and I have a 3.5-year-old at ECC, and then I have a 4-month-old.
Awesome, great. So I'm at the Hoover and the Lincoln. So whose class is your son?
He has Miss Abbott.
Miss Abbott, great. So I was just saying that one of the things that we've been doing is going into the classes and doing whole class SEL lessons. So Jennie does them at the Lincoln, I do them at the Hoover, and then the psychologists and social workers across the district do them at the elementary level, which is definitely my favorite part of the week. So I saw your son yesterday with Miss Abbott, it was great. We do lots of different kinds of things for kids who are on IEPs and 504s, or, you know, at all different tiers who need social skills or counseling. And all that different stuff. A huge piece of what we do is the consultation for teachers, and really starting to implement, like Cindy was saying, that we have 6 hours and 10 minutes. This has to happen all day. So how can we support teachers so that they're able to do that along with all the other things that they do. I also do the cognitive assessments for referrals and evaluations, and we both do, mostly Jennie, tons of conversations with communities and outside supports, which I think has been the best thing about having a social worker full-time is, you know, really bringing in the community. There are resources here, we need to use them. And then we were joking that crisis team should be at the top because that's mostly what we do. Yeah, so we realized last slide, this is supposed to be green, this is supposed to be red. So there's 1,000 of them and I picked the wrong one on Google. But so obviously there's the 3 tiers of support. When you guys go and meet with the teachers, you hear about the DIBEL scores and they're in this red and green, and that there's the same thing for social emotional learning. So what's exciting is the district is really targeting this tier 1. So everybody. So what does everybody need? You know, what is the language that we should be using with everyone to teach them these skills? Tier 2 is kind of the kids who we think about might just need a little extra help, maybe 6-week intervention or something like that. And then the tier 3 kids are the kids we think about who really need that embedded. It might be part of an IEP or something like that. But the really exciting thing is that we're acknowledging that it's not just these friends who need the support, it's everybody.
And just to go back for 1 second, you don't have to click back.
I don't know.
But raise your hand if you've heard of PBIS. So PBIS is positive behavior interventions for school-wide, and it's a sort of a model that the whole district is moving towards, and it's very exciting. It goes along with those tiers, but it's really focusing, in a nutshell, it's focusing on putting positive strategies and resources and supports for everybody, all tier 1, with the hopes that it becomes more common for everyone to utilize them. And for tier 2 and tier 3 kids, it becomes they're less self-conscious to utilize some of these resources and supports, because it's just, you know, if there's a cozy corner in the classroom, it's for everybody. If there's 2 kids who happen to use it the most, that's fine, but it's something that's just part of everyday life and everyday language, and there's a huge focus on catching kids doing positive things and catching staff doing positive things and making staff feel really good, so that, you know, happy staff, happy students kind of mentality. And so every school is sort of incorporating it in a slightly different way. At Lincoln, I'm part of the PBIS leadership group, and we have a team, and we're really trying to do a lot of implementation with staff and with students, and helping each classroom really figure out like where they want to focus and highlight the positives. And it's just a really exciting movement, and Cindy's super behind it, and it's been really great. So at every single elementary school has their own sort of different little thing of how they're focusing and incorporating these positives. So at Lincoln, we really focus on the 3 R's, and it's a school-wide thing of being respectful, responsible, ready to learn. Again, with kids and with staff, we give out paws, they're little stickers when we catch kids exhibiting 3R behavior. every school has their own kind of core values, and they all have like similar underlying ideas across the district, but each school sort of made it their own. And we used to have CARES, which are still our Lincoln values, which is citizenship, acceptance, respect, effort, and safety. And we still focus on that, but we're putting a heavy emphasis kind of on the 3R as like our school mentality.
And so at the Hoover, we have the 7 Habits of Happy Kids, and I encourage everybody to get the book because it's really great and covers a lot of these things that we're talking about with the social emotional learning. So it's very similar to at the Lincoln. We have everybody across the district, across the school. This is saying word district. Across the school, we have, what does the 7 habits look like in the hallway? It's the same thing. What does being a 3R student look like in the hallway? What does it look like in the cafeteria? What does it look like in the classroom? What does it look like in the bathroom? That's a big one. To remind kids, how can we be doing this? So it's really exciting because kids are, given, these little labels, little stickers that share, oh, you were caught being proactive. So it's just like having them. And I think one awesome thing over the last couple of years across both of the schools that I'm at has been this huge buy-in from teachers too, and that it's really becoming central. For instance, when you see a kid with a paw, everybody, the lunch lady, everybody's saying, oh my gosh, what did you do to earn your paw? And that's a big piece, like, I did this. And sometimes if they say, I don't know, they gotta come up with something. Why did you get it?
But also with the 3Rs too, I mean, we love the 3Rs, the language, and it's something that parents can easily adapt. One thing that we were talking about, when we were preparing for today, we've heard a lot of parents wanting particular strategies and ideas for home, and so feel free to both break down questions or ask questions if there's particular things like, oh, I like that idea, how can I modify it for my child, or can you give me some help on things that I can sort of do. But 3R, what does 3R behavior look like at the dinner table? Maybe throwing carrots at your brother is not being respectful or ready to eat. Or 3R behavior in the car to go to soccer practice, and are we ready to be a player, and do you have your uniform on, and all of these different pieces. So it can easily be adapted.
So this is really the overall arching theme, is that we needs to be a cultural shift. And I'm saying before, we had the same slide last year, and it's so exciting just to see how far we've come, that this was kind of like our big message, but now I think we're really got this. We're just kind of implementing it now across the district, which is really exciting. And obviously the parent piece that Jennie was talking about is big, that your kids are hearing it all day, so might as well, the wheel's already made, right?
And I think with that piece too, thinking about the district, so the ECC, for example, on the pre-K level, has a particular set curriculum that they use for the whole ECC, and it's a second step curriculum, and it's a great curriculum. We implemented it last year, and it has messages and ideas that trickle up. So the 5 elementary schools each have their own thing. There's that common underlying language. Our hope is that with kids in all of the elementary schools, by the time they get up to middle school, where there's not a particular set curriculum, but that these are values and behaviors and that are just kind of ingrained, and then it becomes part of, the teachers then take it and go into the classrooms and how they make it in their own individual classrooms, and the same for the high school level. It's just kind of nice to think about, like, by the time they get up there, that everyone, these are just expectations that are just, habits.
So if anyone was at the first presentation today, and this is what they were showing, that this is kind of the overarching themes that we utilize here, and pretty much everybody utilizes. Castle's the experts. So these are the 5 areas of social emotional learning that we want our kids to learn and grow with. And this website has some really awesome things for kids across all different ages. So this is my shameless plug, where I'm a big fan of SEL for Math. They're an organization that's done a ton to kind of acknowledge that we have standards for math and reading and all of science and all these different things, but we also should have them and acknowledge that social emotional learning is as important to creating the adults that we're making here in school. So they do a ton, and Melrose is really involved with them. We're going to a big speech talk in a little bit. They're also involved with something that Jennie helped implement last year at the ECC.
So in the same way that there's ELA and math standards for the state, there are now social emotional learning and approaches to play standards. They created them in June, and they start for pre-K and K. And they're going to be shifting up, and they're going to then do 1 through 3, and they're going to work their way up and go all the way up to grade 12. But they started at the earliest level to kind of across the board get this just part of them practicing all of the time. And it's really, really exciting. It puts pressure on the teachers, but in a really good way, because it's things that are, it's not creating more work for them, because it helps highlight things that teachers do naturally and ways that they are already addressing these social emotional needs and the play areas, especially at pre-K and K levels, and how to find and strengthen these skills that these kids need. So it's nice that the state is really on board and super supportive, and Melrose has been really involved from the beginning and super supportive, which has just been really exciting to see. So we're moving in a good direction. We're hoping that the grades 1 through 12 will kind of come along a little bit faster than it took for the pre-K 5, but that's okay. We're on the right track.
We're on the right track. So today what we're really hoping we can do, like Jenny said, is think of what specific things can we be doing at home and that we're also doing at school, practical tips to really enforce these social emotional strengths in our kids. And we just think this cartoon is really cute. It's talking to the kids, telling all about how excited he was to go to school on his first day. He goes, oh my gosh, I gotta go back. So I think it's acknowledging that like school's hard and your day, the kids are busy all day long, and helping them cope with it. So Lynn is a school psychologist in Newton, and she kind of puts together her own idea of what social emotional learning is, and effective education is how she explains it. And I think it's a really interesting way to think about it, and it's putting that word education in there. So it's English language arts education, effective education is also important. So it's really the goals around it is thinking about what's the experience of our emotions. We want kids to know what it feels like when my belly hurts. What is that? Why do we have them? What's the point? The expressions of emotions and their intensity, which is a big thing we'll talk about, because we're having the reaction match the size of your problem. And then the distinctions among emotions, which we talked a lot about, I think, in the last session, and thinking about, what's the difference between being frustrated and being jealous? They're all part of, kind of the angry, but what is that distinction? And it's labeling that for kids and helping them understand what's going on.
And I think, obviously as like the counseling duo, we talk about feelings all day long, and we want kids to recognize and realize that that's important and it's good, and we should be talking about feelings all the time and at home, and that it's normal, and that everyone is going to feel all of these feelings, and it's okay to feel angry. Everyone's going to feel angry. I'm concerned when kids say, I never feel angry. That's a red flag to me. But how to help them deal with their anger in a healthy way, and what are reactions that are positive, healthy reactions, and learning positive strategies across the board in all different settings. And like Sam said, connecting and being able to realize, like, I'm getting a headache every single day before social studies. Like, can I stop and like look at this and figure out different patterns and triggers? Emotional recognition. I encourage families, because we talk about feelings a lot at school, it's really nice to be able to talk about it at home and have a feelings chart, which we'll show you on the next slide. It just practices that identification in multiple settings again. Sam and I really like this chart. There's tons of different charts. We like this one a lot because it includes guilty and jealous, which a lot of, if you go into Google Images, you can find lots of different charts. Not all of them have guilty and jealous are important things to kind of talk about, because, like Sam said, it could, everything isn't mad. There are subsets, and it's important to be able to say, well, I'm not just mad at her because she took my toy. I'm feeling like jealous because she has all of the toys and I never have, being able to kind of dig a little deeper so that everything's not just mad, sad, glad. Because that's not life. Life isn't super clear cut, and there's lots of different sort of underlying areas. We encourage, I like when parents have these on the fridge, and you can have a little magnet, and modeling for yourself, oh, I left my groceries in the shopping, I left my groceries on the counter or something, and I needed that ingredient, and I'm feeling really frustrated. I'm going to move my magnet to feeling disappointed, or, I'm embarrassed about something, and modeling that for your kids. And finding there's different charts. There's Lego little feelings charts. There's emojis for kids who will connect to emojis. So finding something that's fun that your kid is going to enjoy using and that you're going to enjoy using with them is just a nice way to sort of introduce this vocabulary at a very, teenagers can use it, and then they might laugh about it, but they'll use it, and little kids relate really well and love the picture, the visuals. I think parents talk a lot about, well, how do I help my child in these other situations outside of school? And brainstorming and role playing. Like, we can't stress enough how much role playing is an important part of, we're going to be going to a new friend's birthday party, or we're going to a dentist appointment, and don't assume like, oh, you had a dentist appointment last year, you must be feeling totally fine about it because it's been or 6 months later, like you're gonna have the same experience, which is a positive one. They might be feeling different about it, so previewing and asking them how they're feeling and coming up with strategies and ways of coping that we'll talk more about when they're experiencing like a less than ideal kind of reaction. And having different discussions of hypothetical situations that you might think that they worry about. And and not being afraid to label it, because lots of times parents say, well, I don't want to introduce more worries. And I think sort of feeling out your child and knowing like if there's a chance that your child might be worrying about that, it's okay to be like, oh, well, I know I was worried, and modeling it yourself. I was worried when I lost this. It made me wonder, like, am I ever going to find, whatever the example might be that you feel your child's going to relate to, because it's just more reassuring to them, and it usually creates more of a feeling of comfort than an increased anxiety, because it's like, I know that that's going to be okay. My mom or dad feels this way, and they have ways of coping. I can kind of cope with it too.
I think a big theme of what we talk about with our kids, and something that we want to get across today too, is that feelings are okay, and that's kind of see this on all of our slides. But I think what can happen with kids is they start to associate the negative feelings with being bad. And so I'm angry, so that's bad. And I'm upset, so that's bad. I'm happy, so that's good. And it can really be an issue for kids, particularly in trying to talk to them about their emotions, because they'll just say, oh, I'm happy, I'm good. So acknowledging that all the different feelings are okay, none of them are bad or sad, it's just how we react to them. That's could be where we get into the, is this the right reaction or the not right reaction? So I think that's a really good big thing, because a lot of the kids I see definitely have that idea that it's, angry is bad, and like Jenny said, there's 3: sad, happy, glad, and mad. And I think, thank you. And I think that that's kind of a really big thing for kids, is acknowledging like it's okay, and like I'm angry right now, but I'm gonna get through it, and I'm okay, and together we're gonna use our strategies to figure it out. We're big proponents of Inside Out. There's a lot of great research that says it really is, I'm sure you guys have seen that from child psychiatrists and stuff, that it really is, this is how our brains and our emotional functioning works, and particularly with all the neurons, and I definitely geeked out about this movie, I'm a big fan, and the kids really resonate with it. So I've added pictures of all these guys to all my posters in the room, and all the different things that we use as they get it, even at the younger ages, kind of understanding the distinctions and the different kind of categories of emotions. There's lots of really great books to use with kids that talk about this stuff. The Magic Sunglasses is my personal favorite, because it's all about, changing the way you look at something, by just changing the way you think. And a lot of these things obviously are based on evidence-based therapy practices. This is piece of the Magic Sunglasses is cognitive behavioral therapy in a book. So, it's pretty cool. Change the way you think, so you change the way that you feel. And this is one that we use with a lot of our kids, and I'm really impressed with how much it resonates with them, is thinking about the 5-point scale and having your reaction really be in line with the size of your problem. And so it can be very fun with the kids kind of not in the moment, reviewing the 5-point scale and kind of saying, here are different scenarios. So you can even do this in the car, saying, all right, so what if right now the car in front of us stops and we hit them? What size problem is that going to be? So you can say, well, that's a 4. It's kind of a big deal. We got in an accident, but we're all okay, so it's not necessarily 5. So what if I start screaming and jump out of the car and roll around on the ground? What is that reaction? That's a 5, Mom. That's not necessarily matched. So it's saying, making sure that your problem is matching the size. And this is good for a lot of kids who are still, particularly younger kids, trying to figure that out, where they drop their lunch and they just start having a giant meltdown and stuff like that. Yes?
What if they just disagree with you?
So
being a big or little problem, like I have,
that's a wonderful question. We get that every single time. So that's going to happen. That's definitely going to happen. I think that's why it's important to kind of review it beforehand when everybody's calm. And I think eventually they'll start to get it. And it's that modeling piece as well, to kind of say like, is this really a 5? This is where I use tons of humor with the kids. I'll say like, oh really, is your foot on fire, or did you just stub your toe? That kind of stuff, to be silly, and to kind of acknowledge it in that moment. And kids, they get it. I think they're disagreeing with you because it's you. Right? Because you're the mom. And so I think that's another big piece too, is to kind of practice it and stuff like that.
But I think, again, having it become part of the everyday, so over time they'll realize, you know what, and they don't have to admit it to parents, but like over time, maybe this isn't as big of an issue. But also acknowledging that, let's say you have a cat and your cat dies, and one kid didn't really love the cat that much, and so he might say, oh, it was a 2, like it was a cat, but the other child was obsessed and loved that cat, and so they might be reacting and feel like that's a 5 response. And so validating that that's all right to be feeling that, you know, or your best friend's moving, maybe, you know, that might feel like a 5. Or you might have a child who says, that's a 3 because I can still, you know, email them and we can still go and visit to them. So being able to validate your child where they are and have those conversations, this is nice because it can be adapted to older kids too. And being able to be adapted to teenagers and think of different scenarios and being able, again, to model it as adults. If you know, one of your coworkers is leaving who you really loved working with, or like you got an offender bender, or you forgot your lunch at home, or you forgot your coffee, and just being able to model how you reacted to that and being able to admit your faults. I reacted with a 4 when it was really a 1, and it makes them feel better and makes them feel less shame and less guilt when they might overreact, or when they, deep down, they know it was a small problem, they couldn't keep a small problem, but when they see, you know what, my grown-ups at school and at home can have reactions that sometimes are too big, and I'm going to work through that and I'm going to practice so that over time I'm able to keep my small problems small.
Do you ever talk about, like, today it may feel like a 5,
Yes.
tomorrow we might, you know, the hope
I think
is that it might be a 3. So you're not trivializing like how they're feeling.
Great point. I think that's kind of what Jenny's pointing out. I was just thinking the same thing, that it can move. Like your problem moves. The first day that your cat dies might be a 5, but after a couple weeks that you're, you know, writing a letter and you're doing all these different things, that it can shift to a 3. I think that's an awesome lesson for kids too. Is that like in the moment it feels like a 5, and this is the moment, but I think that's really powerful. And when I use this with our kids at school, it's for the kids who are having a hard time, you know, moving past that 5 reaction and saying like, okay, yep, we were upset, but now we've dealt with the problem is shrinking, our reaction should be shrinking a little bit too, and it's really nice, I think, for students who are on the autism spectrum or have different learning styles, because it really can intellectualize it for them and solidify kind of this goes with this goes with this, which is a huge piece of what we do with our kids who have autism and other types of cognitive and different learning styles. It's really utilizing that.
And I think even being able to kind of proactively like and praise your kids too, and saying, you know what, your brother grabbed that out of your hand, I'm really proud of you. You kept that a small problem and you didn't hit him, or you took some deep breaths, and I'm really proud of you for keeping a small problem small. And even validating that to other adults around you, so that kids, I think that's one of the important things, and that's part of that, you know, PBIS thing that we're trying to focus on, is teachers validating teachers and pointing out praises of teachers, and, you know, validating that and modeling that from adult to adult, and for kids to see those relationships being modeled and praised. That's an important thing for that.
So we're really big fans of the engine, and what's so cool about this is that you can make it your own. So right now I'm doing it with a friend who has Sonic the Hedgehog is too high and a snail is too low, and then kind of this picture of him as a Minecraft guy as just right. And that's what's so cool about it, and it's really easy. And so the idea of this is that self-regulation piece, so starting to kind of incorporate the emotions as well as kind of how is your body doing. And so a big example that we'll use is, say you have a kid that you're trying to get sit down at the table for dinner, but they're running laps around the kitchen over and over, thinking, okay, so where is your engine at right now? And so they would be familiar with this language, and they would say, oh yeah, my engine's too high. So what do we need to do to get it just right for dinner? And so we talked a little bit about, you know, different kids have different things that'll work for them. Some kids need to run around 3 more times, then they're ready to sit. Some kids need to take a break, take a couple deep breaths, read a quick story, and we were joking that you'll find out pretty quickly which one works for your kid or not if you try the running and that doesn't work. And that also with the too low is another really big one for kids who are, you know, maybe just kind of laying on their desk at school and things like that, thinking, hey, engine check, using that language and saying, oh yeah, my engine's low, I need to use my strategies to bring it back up to just right.
And being able to support kids too, if you know a child always, you know, has a low engine in the morning and then they're going to a different class that might be harder for them to focus, do you need to give them a movement break, you know, or for at home as well, you know, do you need to have them, okay, let's both do, you know, 10 jumping jacks together to sort of get our energy up so we don't feel like falling asleep on our desk. So worry wards, I think one thing that parents talk to us and ask us a lot about all of the time is anxiety. And anxiety is on the rise, and we see it in so many different ways. And and we see it manifest and look like a lot of different things. We see it look like attentional issues, we see it look like depression issues, we see it look like oppositional defiance kind of issues, but it can be an underlying root of so many different issues. And I think what we've struggled with this, excuse me, we say to parents, like, we don't want to create more worry in parents because parents have enough worry, but if you think your child might be struggling with anxiety, like, that's okay because there's strategies and solutions that we can put in place. And I think a lot of parents have said, but my child's so young, like, how can I have a 4-year-old who's anxious about stuff? But yet it does, it happens, and we see it at the ECC all of the time, and figuring out how to identify that and how to instill some of these preventative kinds of measures as best as possible. And then on the flip side, when we have these older kids, what are strategies that we're doing for the older kids, and really helping them identify the anxiety within themselves, and helping the school support them, and helping support them at home. And again, from social anxieties to separation anxiety, it definitely is on the rise. It's a big cultural, societal piece, and people say, well, why is it so, why is anxiety so high? And I think there's a lot of we're putting a lot of expectations on our kids that are not the same expectations that were on our kids even 10 years ago, from academic expectations, the lack of play, the lack of movement, the lack of imaginative stuff that needs to be, part of kids' day-to-day life. The expectation that you need to have 5 extracurricular activities by the time you're 4 years old, so you can, start putting together your college resume when you're in preschool. Those are pieces to really think about. The technology and electronics is another huge piece. And I think when people say, why is there a rise in ADHD or anxiety, or all of these pieces, all of these expectations and the technology piece are all contributing factors. So I think trying to combat them all is obviously can be overwhelming. So trying to break it down and look, okay, what can I do to reduce technology use in my child if this is causing more problems than it is good, and looking at those different pieces.
So I like this quote a lot from Dr. Laura Prager, who works at Mass General, who's great, who really understands. This is another one of the messages that I think we try to get across to our teachers and our parents, is thinking about, the students who might be the ones who are very dysregulated, and maybe the behavior kids who are on the floor and having a hard time, having the tantrums in the supermarket, just giving you a run for your money. But that really also is a masquerader for anxiety, and that's a piece of that. That they're inside, got a lot of these things going on and trying to figure out the expressions. That they're not doing things on purpose. We say, kids will behave if they can, and giving them the strategies. I think this is a big message that has been a cultural shift, even in education, is acknowledging that these kids are not bad. They are struggling with their social emotional skills, and so we're going to implement, teach them how to do it.
There's a bunch of different sort of worry reduction exercises that Sam and I like to do with kids, both at school, and we encourage parents to do at home. Worry boxes, we have worry boxes where kids will write and leave their worries, and I love when parents do this too. It can be on in a little shoebox, and the kids decorate it and leave it on your dresser. And it's the idea, same with the worry stones, that we are going to hold on to this worry for you. You are physically going to hand this to us on a piece of paper, or an imaginary, like physically hand it to you. And it's a little bit less that you have to walk around with. And we can go in and we can look at it in the box, we can revisit it. Some kids choose to share with us what they're putting in the worry box, some kids choose not to. That's completely fine, but it's just that the basic mentality is a little less that you have to carry, and I will take this piece for you and help you with it. With worry stones, kids can whisper or rub worries into their stones, keep it in their pocket. Some kids can also, there's different things for different kids. Some kids might not be good with having rocks in their pockets because it can be tempting to throw the rock sometimes. So having different bracelets, and having like a worry bracelet, even like a rubber band kind of bracelet where you rub or you twirl and you're like imagining and sort of sending your worries into this bracelet, and different sorts of strategies that's going to work for your own kid. So if there's particular things that you like, oh, how can I help my child with this, feel free to think about that, and you can email us or write us questions at the end because we love helping sort of tailor ideas to individual kids. Here's a little picture of one of our worry boxes. And coping tools. We talk about this a lot, and it seems really silly, of like every child and adult, teachers, parents, every single parent should have their own list of coping tools. I strongly encourage families to keep their coping tool list on the fridge, and everybody's list is on the fridge or somewhere that's up. And I always say have at least 10 to 20 things on your coping tool list. And people are like, 10 to 20 things, like how am I gonna come up with that? But you need different ideas because first of all, I like there to be ideas that can be used in school, at home, and in the car. And they shouldn't all be technology, electronic based. Because if you're stuck somewhere and you don't have anything or your phone battery dies, like kids need to be able to come up with things. And kids will say to us, okay, my coping skills, I can take 10 deep breaths and I can count to 10 and then count backwards and then I can use my stress ball. And they know the right things to say to us, and that's great. And for some kids who really, they use the deep breathing well, awesome. But the deep breathing can be kind of cliche to a lot of kids too, and we want them to actually use things that they're actually going to use and that it's going to connect with them. And so I think if it can be some sort of non-tangible things where we do a lot of like mini mental vacations where you imagine yourself in your favorite place and you go through the 5 senses and imagine what your favorite place, what you see, what you smell, and you can do that in the car, you can do that when you're sitting at your desk right before a math test that's freaking you out, you can do that, anywhere, and it's okay to have the iPad, playing a game on your iPad, listening to music on your list, but being able to have your list and verbalizing to your child sometimes when you are using those things. My boss yelled at me today, I had a horrible day, I'm going to go to the gym for half an hour, or I'm going to sit and read a book, or I'm going to take some deep breaths, or I'm going to take have a cup of tea, and verbalizing that you are using this stuff instead of, sometimes we just do things naturally because we're adults and we know how to just utilize our skills to cope, but it can be really powerful for your kids to see and hear you labeling because, oh gee, mom and dad get stressed and they use one of their strategies or their tools and they feel better, and I can do that too. And again, it just becomes the more you practice it and practice it proactively, break it out when you need it, but also when you're when you don't necessarily need it, it's okay to be like, well, I'm feeling like a little tense, so I'm going to practice this so my problem doesn't become a bigger problem.
And for some of our kids, like I was saying, with different learning styles, or maybe with autism, I'll call this a cognitive distraction. Your cognitive distractions, which just sounds a little bit cooler than coping tools, particularly for the older kids. And so they know they have their little cognitive distractions. It could be a puzzle. If these are the friends who start to get anxious in class, like, oh, I need a puzzle, and they go do their little mind teaser puzzles and stuff like that. It's just different language to use it. But the point is that you're shifting your thinking and you're taking a break with your brain. So it's a cognitive distractor.
Having toolboxes ready for lots of different outside of school places. Parents ask us a lot. My child always seems to be stressed. It's dance practice or soccer practice, or play dates can be a challenge. And so we encourage you. This is really, there's not like a clear-cut thing for strategies that work for all of sports practices. So think if there's particular scenarios that you struggle with, feel free to email us and we will help you come up with any particular ideas of different scenarios. But I think one thing that we always like, coming up with a secret signal. A lot of parents have said to us, my child's at their sports practice or at a play date, and if they're starting to feel anxious, or we're out in public, we're out to dinner, they're starting to feel overwhelmed, I can kind of see them getting amped up. Sometimes I don't want to say something because I don't want to trigger it more, but also if they feel that they need a break, how can they, in the middle of soccer, let me know that they're feeling like they're about to have a panic attack, or that they're so angry they're going to kick their teammate. So coming up with this, it could be a secret signal, even like if you're able to like see them actually like pulling on their ear, or like, oh mom, what time is it? And whatever your code word can be, and it can be adapted to be age appropriate, but it can just, knowing they have that in place. Some parents say, well, is my kid going to use that and use it all the time? But sometimes for a lot of kids, just knowing they have that as an option and they have that out and they have that way that mom or dad can help them feel better in the moment and problem solve can be very stress reducing for kids in that moment. Having conversations with kids about birthday parties, we talk about this a lot, but not even just about the birthday parties, but the social aspect, and when you start not getting invited to birthday parties, and the exclusion piece, and how to have those conversations, and pros and cons, and what's a good thing about not being invited to that birthday party, what's a bad thing, and being able to have those kinds of conversations for particular things. If there's a family gathering or going to grandma's house, always stresses a particular child about how to have those conversations proactively and come up with strategies for individual scenarios.
So this is, I think, what we've been talking about really wholly in this whole conversation is really this reviewing, role-playing, and the modeling piece for kids. Before a trip to the playground practice what they're going to say. Social skills is something that we need to be explicit with kids. How do you teach somebody to join in? One thing is, I work a lot with kids who are going over to groups of kids and saying, can I play with you? When that's not necessarily the best move. Instead of saying, can I play with you, just go over and say, what are you playing? And just those types of little things really can help kids to sort of feel more included and just kind of get right in there. Because we know kids mostly want to include everybody, but they don't necessarily have the skills. Like we know, working at work all day long, like it's not easy to implement and work with adults, so it's the same with kids. So really kind of giving them that explicit instruction around, this is what you should do if you want to play soccer. Go over there and say, oh, I'm on a soccer team, and be part of it. And standing at the edge, a lot of times we say that, but other students don't necessarily have the skills all the time to notice, oh, you're standing on the edge, come on in. So we need to kind of teach both sides. And we have, at Hoover, we're implementing a buddy bench, which is something that we're putting out. And so whenever anyone's sitting on the buddy bench, the goal is that everybody else would know, oh, that means they have someone to play with. So someone should go over there and bring them over. So I think that's something that we should be teaching our kids all the time. Like, well, someone's standing alone, what should we do? Should we invite them? Should we help them? And the same for the kids standing alone. What can you do to be included?
And this is part of what we practice from kindergarten and first grade at Lincoln. These are the groups that I teach across the board, and these are the strategies of joining in. If a friend says no, when do you go to get a teacher to ask for help, and when do you try to problem solve on your own? Teaching these different strategies and teaching this across the board, so by the time they trickle up to 4th grade, 5th grade, they're better able to use the strategies more readily.
At what age do you start to see sort of rejection with kids more than, what grade do you think? Is it more like social, where there's more of that separation of people, kids get more isolated from other kids?
I think that's a great question. We talked about that a little bit in the last session. We were kind of saying how it's unfortunate, and this is a conversation I have with parents all the time, because they'll come to me and say, oh my gosh, my daughter's in 2nd grade and she's being excluded, and that's true. Mean girls start really young now. So I think,
and boys.
And boys, yes, and boys. And it just starts a lot younger. So I think the real big shift, I would say, if I had to pick, would be once kids kind of get to that 3rd grade, it's when you kind of stop inviting the whole class to your birthday party. And that's kind of when those shifts kind of happen, but it can be any time.
2nd grade is really when kids start to, I think, developmentally start being more aware of, like, these are my friend groups, versus in 1st grade, there's still a lot of inclusion of everybody, and 2nd grade seems to be where we notice a bigger divide of, like, now I'm in my group, I'm not going to include you as much, or there's more, I hate the word cliques, even though I know they exist, but like where you start to see it, sadly, I would say it's 2nd grade.
Yeah.
Kind of that.
And then usually there's some interesting, actually, research around by 3rd grade kids know who the cool kids are and know which group you're going to be in. So I think that's one of the really positive things about Melrose, in my opinion. I've worked in other districts where it's the same kids all the way through, is that, and I say this to a lot of our kids who are in 4th and 5th grade, you're going to go to middle school and you're going to meet kids from all the other schools and you're going to find your people, even if they're not here. And so I think that's a big thing too, because they say that it kind of can be established. Don't move anywhere that's K to 8. K to 12.
So we use a bunch of different curriculums, pieces of different curriculums at Lincoln, and we use it individually with kids one-on-one, in groups, and in classrooms, and we'll give teachers tools if they need different things. Social Thinking is a great website. Michelle Garcia-Winner, there's a lot of different pieces of it. Social Detectives, really, it's the idea in a nutshell of being able to notice things about situations and notice things about people, and when we have, the next slide, which is, I think, expected and unexpected behaviors, which the language goes together. When we have good feelings and expected feelings about people, and people are doing expected behaviors, we feel good about them, we feel good about ourselves. When we are doing unexpected behaviors, socially unaccepted behaviors, then people have, not great feelings and thoughts about us. And so the thoughts and feelings and connecting that into how we then interact with those people. And expected behaviors and unexpected behaviors is really easy, nice language for parents to even be able to use at home. It's like, oh, you didn't like your dinner and you threw it across the room. That was sort of unexpected. I thought you would have just said, I'm all done. And what we expected, and being able to model that language, it's really easy, and it can be applied to every single different scenario.
And it just sounds nicer than, that was not don't do that.
That was terrible.
Yes. What are you doing?
The Superflex and the Unthinkables is another part of this curriculum, and the kids love this.
Love it.
We do lots of individual and group pieces with this. In a nutshell, it's about this little boy named Aiden, and he finds his brain sensor and turns into a superhero, and his goal is to defeat the Unthinkables, who are sort of this team of bad guys, and these different Unthinkables take over and make us do different sorts of unexpected things. And what we model is every single child and grown-up has these Unthinkables take over our brain at some point or another, some more than others. And the kids love it. It's this comic book style layout, and the kids can really relate very well to these characters, and it helps make them feel a little less embarrassed and less ashamed because it's something that's common. So Glassman, for example, he's one of the most popular. He makes people have huge upset reactions. So when we have conversations like, oh, it kind of seems like you're having a Glassman moment, he's trying to take over your brain right now. Not that it takes away all accountability, but it helps them realize, like, this is something, he takes over a lot of people's brains, and I don't have to feel as bad about myself personally. So for some kids who can be really sensitive, this can be a really nice sort of way of relating to them about the choices they make and ways to defeat them.
Just a quick question. So this type of activity, do you incorporate, you might have said this before, I'm sorry if I
No, that's okay.
But do you incorporate this for all kids, like sort of intro, like do you visit the classroom and then like show this to them, or is this more for smaller groups or kids that come, that you might meet with on a one-on-one basis?
Currently it's more of a small groups, but it's leaking into more classes. And my goal, since I'm doing lessons in kindergarten and first grade, but even the older kids, like my 4th and 5th graders, I have these posters in my office, they all love it. And my goal is to be able to get it incorporated into all classes in some way. So it might not be that I'm able to do sit-down lessons with the whole 2nd and 3rd grade, but I'm also trying to teach more of the staff so that over time it becomes just common language. And some kids are super familiar with it, other kids don't know about it yet, and my goal is to get it so that everyone in some way has access to it because it's just super relatable.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also it's always shifting too, and there's recently I've found it on Pinterest, there's a positive poly, so I like it A because it's a female, and then B, it's Aiden's friend, and so she teaches you how to change your thinking in your brain. It's for like focus on that anxiety stuff, and she's super cute, so I've been a big positive poly fan as well, so we'll have to buy a poster.
She's coming. But there's another book of like supplemental Unthinkables where kids have written in, and there's like 82 Unthinkables and new Unthinkables that kids have created, and it comes up with all of these different ones. And the one activity that we do a lot is come up with your own Unthinkable, and you could even do that at home, and it's a super fun activity for kids. They love it.
So this is the zones of regulation, which I'm a really big fan of. I think it's a really easy way to kind of discuss emotions with kids, particularly in those moments when it's hard to access your emotional vocabulary if you're feeling upset. You can also we have lots of parents and teachers who just have like these different colors. It's like, how are you doing? And it's like green, that's where I am, or red. And so it's really thinking about the different zones that you're in, and this connects to all these other pieces with the engine, as well as it connects to Inside Out. They're the same kinds of things. Luckily, they're the same color, so that was good. But the red zone is really thinking about when you're feeling out of control and feeling angry. Yellow zone is, getting a little bit frustrated, a little bit worried. So again, like, where's your problem? Where's your reaction? Green zone is just feeling good. I'm ready to learn. I'm okay. And then the blue, and it incorporates that idea of like tired and sad, and just kind of having like a low engine. So it kind of all goes together and ties it together. The kids, like I said, really relate to it. With a lot of my kids, I've done what can we add for zones, and so some of my friends, we had 20 zones of like light purple and mauve and all of these different things to like think about the idiosyncrasies. And again, when kids can label it themselves, it's exciting.
I think too, one tip that we'd like to give parents is thinking if there's a particular area of your child's day-to-day or their schedule where they have a lot of challenges, and are there simple things that you could do at home without buying into this whole curriculum, where you can even make visuals, even for older kids, and it can be something with, we can help parents find equivalents of visuals for even teenagers, but something visually that's going to help them, or something you can keep in the car, something that if they're totally shut down and they don't want to talk and they just want to like a visual of like, we want to go and talk, do you want to sit in the living room or do you want to sit in my bedroom and talk about this? And nonverbal options are really helpful to have, even for a super verbal child. Sometimes if they're not in the mood to talk, it can be nice having that, or having a schedule that relates to certain after-school activities and tying it in. So we can help parents, and we love helping parents come up with different things that are going to work for their child. The Incredible Flexible U is another, we take pieces of this curriculum. We're using this currently for the first grade at Lincoln. But again, the ideas of body and brain in the group and whole body listening, which is something I'm sure a term that everyone's probably heard of, that comes from the Incredible Flexible U idea. And all of these pieces kind of tie in together, which is another thing. So there's some classes that have more of an emphasis on this based on how the teachers seen the need and kind of adapted it to their class. And that's one of the nice things about this, is we try to really have everyone get the kind of overall gist, but also help in particular classes where teachers feel more connected to one idea or the other.
And I would say particularly at both of the schools we're at, and the whole body listening, just that language specifically is used by most of our teachers and by the staff. And it's really just thinking, like, when you're talking to your kid and they're either looking at the TV or with their head underneath the chair saying like, oh, are you using whole body listening? I know that you're listening, but how can I tell? How can you let me know that you are? So your eyes need to be looking at me, you need to be facing me. And there's some really nice little pictures that go along with that that's easy to Google, and that's been, I think, really powerful for kids, because we can spend so much time being like, look at me, pay attention to me, what are you doing? And like, are you listening? Or we know that our kids are listening, but they need to practice that if strangers talking to them, that the expectation is that you look at them and you respond and show them that you're listening, which is good.
And again, the expected and unexpected, like, oh, like I'm trying to have a conversation with you, it's kind of unexpected that you're like hiding underneath the table and not able to, but also noticing a pattern, and if that's your child constantly sort of doing that, what are other strategies or ways to try to tackle connecting a little bit differently. These are just a few of some websites and books that Sam and I particularly like. If there's particular subjects, again, that you are interested in or want more resources for, specifically around anxiety or loss or whatever it might be for your particular child, feel free to email us. And we're happy to give you some of we have a lot of personal favorites of websites and books on a bunch of different things. So, and we are on Twitter. I'm very new to Twitter. I'm very excited to be tweeting now about some of this.
That's why it's on here, to get some pressure.
I know, Sam.
People are going to be following
I know, Sam started Twitter this summer, so I had to
so
start
into
tweeting.
it. I'm obsessed. I love it.
But if there's some nice resources out there, and I think just really figuring out like where are your kids' strengths and praising them for the strengths, and praising them when you see them doing well, and where are their challenges and how you can kind of help put in more supports in different areas of their life. So we appreciate you being here, and I know we're supposed to be ending, I think, like right now. But if you have any particular questions, again, feel free to email us, or if you want.
We're at now. That's fine too.
I just have one quick question. Yeah. How do you, I know, like my observation is, like, especially with the younger grades, is that classrooms are larger. Teachers have a lot of pressure to do many things right now. You guys are really busy with all of the different activities you're doing, and we have, unlike when I was a kid, we didn't have all these diagnoses and things, categories of things. So how do you guys balance everything you have to do with teachers, and how, as a parent, because I'm always worried about burning out. Like, I don't want to go to the teacher and social worker all the time. I'm concerned about burning you guys out. And so how do you guys balance all of
That's
this?
so nice of you to say. I think this is something that we talked a little bit about earlier, and that Jennie is on our specifically for Lincoln, on our PBIS team, and a huge thing, kudos to her and our other kindergarten teacher who does it, is that's their real focus right now, is like, how do we allow teachers to feel and our staff to feel supported? Because we know that if the culture and that we're not feeling supported, then that's not going to help our kids. And so I think they've done an awesome job in really doing that and saying, like, you're appreciated. Every day we get a little mint with a cute little thing in our mailbox. It's so sweet. And I think that's huge. And I think these types of things, and I know Hoover has a great PTO. I mean, just supporting the school. And I think sorry Cindy, I really think advocating for this kinds of stuff and this social emotional learning and saying like, yeah, this is more things we're putting on our teacher. And again, we're saying it's positive because we're so happy, but it's also, there's still so much more we could be doing.
Right, and I think if you have a situation or a question about your child and like, you're like, oh, I don't know if I should bother, like I'm a little worried about it, but I don't want to bother the teacher. Bother the teacher and shoot him or her an email and say like, I'm not sure if I should make a big deal of this. I just want to let you know that he is saying or doing this at home, or I've noticed this. Like, can you just give me a little bit more information, or do you think I should go to the social worker or the psychologist? You can, I always say to parents, when in doubt, like call or email me. I'm happy to answer or talk about absolutely anything. And if you're not sure, I will help you figure out if it's a big or small problem, and we can go forward from there. But always email, because teachers, I think, would rather know if a parent has a worry and be like, oh no, he's doing great with this, that was a one-time thing, or whatever, and be able to give you that reassurance and extinguish an issue, versus it becoming something that becomes a bigger issue. And we don't want, parents have enough to worry about too. Like, forgetting about, like, our job is to deal with the worries, but you guys have enough to worry about too. So if, we want to reassure you and help you either catch something early or reassure you that something's, not a huge deal.
And don't worry,
always
someone else
reach
is
out.
calling anyway, so usually just call.
Always reach out. Always reach out. We love hearing from the parents who are here, because we're the parents who are, the fact that you guys are all sitting here is, speaks so wonderfully to how invested you guys are. So we appreciate that tremendously. True.
We're excited to get invited back. Ooh, people like it. Woo.
Great. Thank you
guys.
Slide up that has a
Yeah.